Princess Eugenie should be enjoying one of the happiest weeks of her life. On August 3rd, she and her husband, Jack Brooksbank, welcomed their third child and their first daughter in Lisbon, Portugal. Buckingham Palace confirmed the news the following day, saying Eugenie and Jack were delighted by the safe arrival of their baby girl. But behind all that happiness, there may already be a family problem brewing. Because according to reports, Eugenie's parents, Mountbatten-Windsor and Sarah Ferguson, haven't just been celebrating the arrival of another grandchild. They allegedly see this baby as an opportunity. An opportunity to rebuild their shattered public image. An opportunity to reconnect with King Charles and Queen Camilla. And ultimately, an opportunity to get a foot back in the door with the royal family. The problem? Eugenie reportedly isn't having it. One source claims she finds the idea that her new baby could somehow be used to rehabilitate her parents' standing pretty insulting. And now that Sarah has quietly arrived in Portugal to be close to her daughter and new granddaughter, the situation has become even more interesting. So what exactly are Andrew and Sarah reportedly planning? And could the arrival of Eugenie's daughter really offer them a route back towards the firm? Because if these reports are accurate, Eugenie has some very different ideas. Let's start with what we know. Eugenie and Jack's daughter arrived on Monday, August 3rd at 6:20 in the evening in Lisbon. She's their third child, joining 5-year-old August and 3-year-old Ernest. The announcement came directly from Buckingham Palace, which is important. Despite everything that has happened around Eugenie's parents, Eugenie herself clearly hasn't been pushed completely outside the royal fold. The palace announced the birth. The king and queen were said to be delighted, and Eugenie remains very much part of the extended royal family. For Andrew and Sarah, though, things couldn't be more different. Their standing within the monarchy has collapsed. Andrew has been at the centre of years of controversy over his former friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and his relationship with the institution has been dramatically reduced. Sarah has also spent much of 2026 keeping an unusually low profile. And that is what makes these new reports so fascinating. According to one insider, Andrew and Sarah had been pinning their hopes on Eugenie's new baby, creating an opportunity to rebuild some of those damaged family relationships. Their reasoning was apparently quite simple. Nothing brings a family together quite like a new baby. And on a purely personal level, that's understandable. Whatever their public standing, Andrew and Sarah are Eugenie's parents. They're also grandparents. Nobody would find it particularly strange that they'd want to celebrate the birth of their granddaughter or spend time with Eugenie. But the allegation goes considerably further than that. The source claims Andrew and Sarah have been looking at the baby's arrival as a possible foot back in the door with the firm. Apparently, they understand perfectly well that one baby isn't going to erase years of scandal, but they allegedly believe this could create opportunities for contact with members of the family who have otherwise kept their distance. Andrew, according to the report, was already sharing updates about Eugenie with relatives and people he remains in contact with. The source claims both he and Sarah were determined to make the most of any opportunity the birth created. And that's where Eugenie reportedly draws the line. Because there's a massive difference between grandparents privately celebrating the arrival of their granddaughter and grandparents turning that arrival into some kind of royal comeback strategy. According to the source, Eugenie and Jack have no intention of allowing their daughter to become a tool for repairing anyone else's reputation. And you can see why this would be such a sensitive issue. Eugenie has spent months trying to navigate an incredibly difficult position. She hasn't been accused of her parents' behaviour. She hasn't been banished from the royal family. And despite the controversies surrounding Andrew and Sarah, she has continued appearing alongside members of the family. But every time she appears publicly with either of her parents, the story immediately becomes about them. That's exactly what Eugenie and Jack reportedly want to avoid with their daughter. The source claimed that even something as innocent as photographs of Andrew and Sarah visiting the new baby could quickly turn into a media circus. Suddenly, the headlines wouldn't be about Eugenie and Jack becoming parents for the third time. They'd be about Andrew's return, Sarah's comeback, the Yorks rebuilding bridges, and whether King Charles might finally be softening towards them. According to the report, Eugenie finds the idea of her daughter being used that way insulting. The source said the most Andrew and Sarah could realistically expect would be quiet grandparent time behind closed doors. And interestingly, that appears to be much closer to what we're actually seeing. Sarah has now reportedly made a very discreet journey to Portugal. There was no big public arrival, no dramatic photograph, no royal-style appearance. Instead, reports say she quietly travelled to Melillas, where Eugenie and Jack spend part of their time. Sarah is apparently familiar with the area and has previously been seen dining locally with the couple. So at least for the moment, this looks much more like a grandmother privately helping her daughter than some grand public relations campaign. But that doesn't necessarily mean those reported ambitions have disappeared. Because according to the earlier claims, Andrew in particular sees Eugenie's children as part of something much bigger. He's reportedly adamant that the York side of the family still has an important future within the monarchy. And apparently, he believes his grandchildren should eventually have a prominent place within the wider firm because of their royal bloodline. That claim raises a pretty obvious problem. The monarchy under King Charles has been moving in the opposite direction. The focus is increasingly on a smaller group of senior working royals. Eugenie isn't a working royal, neither is Beatrice, and their children aren't being raised as working members of the monarchy. Eugenie's new daughter is certainly a member of the extended royal family, but that doesn't automatically give her an official future inside the institution. And that's something Andrew apparently struggles to accept. According to previous reports, he's encouraged both Beatrice and Eugenie to remember their royal status and to hold their heads high despite the scandals surrounding him. That puts his daughters in an awkward position, because Eugenie clearly hasn't abandoned her father. But maintaining a relationship with your dad is very different from allowing him to dictate your relationship with the monarchy. And right now, Eugenie seems to have something far more immediate on her mind. She has a newborn daughter. She has 2 young sons. She's recovering from giving birth, and she and Jack are beginning life as a family of 5. The last thing she needs is to be managing a royal rehabilitation campaign at the same time. That's why the timing of these claims matters. This was supposed to be Eugenie's news, her daughter's birth, her family's moment. Instead, before the baby had even arrived, reports were already discussing whether Andrew and Sarah could somehow benefit from it. If Eugenie really does find that insulting, it's not difficult to understand why. And Sarah's behaviour over the coming weeks will probably tell us quite a lot. Her arrival in Portugal has been remarkably low-key. If she stays out of sight, spends private time with Eugenie and simply enjoys being a grandmother, then perhaps she understands exactly where the boundary is. Andrew is another question. There has been no comparable public sign of him rushing into Portugal or attempting to turn the birth into a public event. But if the reports about his hopes for the York family are accurate, he may still see Eugenie's children as a connection to a royal world from which he has become increasingly isolated. And that could create problems down the road. Because Eugenie now has 2 families to think about. There's the family she was born into, with all its titles, history, scandals and expectations. And then there's the family she has created with Jack. Right now, protecting the second may be considerably more important than repairing the first. The arrival of a baby can absolutely bring a family closer together, but it can't erase the past. It can't automatically repair broken relationships, and it certainly can't guarantee anyone a place back inside the firm. Andrew and Sarah may reportedly see their new granddaughter as a rare moment of positive news for the York family. Eugenie seems to see her as something much simpler, her daughter. And if these reports are accurate, she wants to make very sure it stays that way. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Sarah and Andrew will ever be welcomed back?